Welcome back to the Wrestling Roundtable. Joining us for the first time on our panel is our old buddy Zach Lippman, fan of 12 years, and we're going to be talking about the best and worst managers in wrestling. Now, funny enough, WWE just like a week or two before this put out their own top 25 managers list, and of course, Bobby Heenan was right at the top. Could anybody really disagree with that?
Not at all. The guy could talk, he was funny, good on commentary, manager, top of the list.
Also a long career. But don't you think that perhaps the reason Heenan made such a legacy is because he was an announcer too?
In the later years of people being like, we really like Bobby Heenan because they remember his commentary more than his managing.
Yeah.
Yes, most people that grew up in our generation, they remember him and Gorilla Monsoon being silly. They don't really remember him in the AWA and him putting an army together to take down Hulk Hogan.
Monsoon and Heenan were basically the R2-D2 and C-3PO of hosting prime time. But the thing is, Heenan was also managing Andre and Harley Race and whoever it might be in his stable. So the entire show, he's there to get not just himself over with his jokes and whatnot, but
And all his guys.
Yeah, all his guys. He can really embed it. I don't think other guys that people might mention up there, like Jimmy Hart, would be as good as Heenan was.
Bobby's number one with a bullet, but he had an advantage in that he could do that. Like when Flair won the title, and he was like, "Oh, this is great." And then
It's not fair to Flair.
when,
Come on, that was great.
when Hogan turned up, I told you so.
Well, I think his crowning achievement was probably the Rumble '92.
Yeah, he was ridiculous that whole time.
It's not just that he had the mic time, but he was good at it too. So besides Bobby Heenan, which I think we would all universally agree is probably the best ever, who else do you think was a good manager?
Captain Lou Albano.
Character. What a character.
Yeah, it's just unique everything, unique look, and he managed so many different people. He was a babyface. A lot of people don't know how great he was as a heel.
He was Super Mario.
Well, he also innovated the rubber band on the goatee. Hasn't been replicated. I would say one of the best would be Harvey Wippleman.
Whippleman.
Because he kind of had the weasel aspect to him and very easy to hate and kind of like a whiner.
I thought it was great when Sid would destroy somebody and Dr. Harvey would get in the ring and check if he was still alive. And then even the Big Bully music shit, which was awful, is so bad it's good. Like he's blowing smoke in kids' faces and poking out balloons from a
He's like the
plant.
most stereotypical wrestling manager you can have.
Jim Cornette. There's a guy also who was very good on commentary.
Heenan, if anybody would have possibly competed in terms of that also announcer spot, Cornette probably would have been up there too.
When they met each other for the first time on Raw, that was one of those early Bizarro World moments in wrestling.
Do you think that WWE was wrong to start fading out these managers and start relying more on the TNA valets in the Attitude Era?
Yeah, definitely. They have so much to add. Not just the whole idea of they can talk with people, but they bring a new dimension. I mean, even when Flair, who's like the greatest talker ever, had Bobby Heenan with him to
J.J.
talk,
Dillon.
and it adds to it. It adds another dimension, another element. You can do things like have a War Games match where the manager's involved too. People just think it's about talking. It's about all these other things that managers do.
Yeah, it adds another element to telling a story in the ring as opposed to just having TNA. Like they could jump on the apron and distract the ref, and they're also very good as a talk box for somebody who wouldn't be able to talk, like Yokozuna.
These valets aren't much of characters though, like a lot of these guys we've been talking about are. Who else do you think was a good manager?
Bill Alphonso. I thought him and ECW was great. The way he'd come out holding everyone's belt. The whistle, I mean, you'll hear that whistle, it associates yourself with
You're watching a Van Dam or Sabu match.
Yeah, the way he'd jump around, his actions outside the ring.
These are a lot of the guys from the yesteryear. There's not too many managers anymore, but of the ones that are still there, I love it, and so do a lot of other people, Prince Nana. Prince Nana is hilarious. He's another one of those characters that is so good at what he does that you would watch him by himself.
Mr. Fuji, throw his name out there. Nothing says stereotypical Japanese wrestler.
Stereotypical Japanese wrestler. He was from a James Bond movie. What about Slick?
Oh, God.
Precious Paul Ellering. Again, if you've seen him at the Road Warriors, again, great talkers. It adds a whole nother dimension to great wrestlers. And he actually babysat them, and that's all legit.
Did
So
they
it
ever really
translated.
need a manager though, those two?
Why not? It is. You got these
You
two.
need it, yeah.
You got these two like maniac, angry guys, and he's like the control.
It's like the guy with the two pimples on the leash, holding these guys back.
I think he said pimples. It took a moment. I'm sorry. But then it doesn't work when like Jimmy Hart manages Hogan, because it's like, well, does he need that? It took away from it. But I don't think Precious Paul Ellering took away.
The stereotype of managers is that they're mouthpieces for guys. Half the time that turns out to not be true. When we just mentioned the great Bobby Heenan, Who do you think about? Mr. Perfect, Rick Rude? Yeah, those are guys who can't talk. But on the other hand, you got Haku and Barbarian. So do you think that the environment that wrestling is in now, where everything is so scripted, down to every word that these guys are saying, managers could never come back in an environment like that, could they?
Very untrue.
Why?
Armando Alejandro Estrada.
Okay,
He was
He's working at Burger King.
He was over, and WWE or whoever was like, "Oh, we can't have a manager be over some of our top stars," and they got rid of him. But that just shows that a manager can still be used today,
Right.
if used right.
How much would the legacy or something like that benefit from somebody who could explain
Dusty.
what the hell they're doing? There's no context when these guys come out and they all look exactly the same.
Mm-hmm. Any one of their fathers could fill that role. But what I mean is,
My daddy.
they're supposed to be the mouthpieces. If everything that's coming out of their mouth is as scripted as the wrestler who was dying to get through this horribly written promo, it's going to take a really talented individual to break through that. And then once they do, they'll get two over, and then they'll get fired. I was going to ask also if there was ever a manager that took away from the act they were supposed to be managing. I don't know if Umaga would be considered part of that with our Estrada getting so over, because Umaga got over with him as well. But has there been anybody that's completely not done their job and gotten over their talent?
Jimmy Hart was such a great heel manager, and then they
Heel.
put him with
Yeah.
Hogan.
With Hogan,
and
it
it's
was
just like
atrocious.
I think maybe he was so irrelevant it didn't make any difference, but I think having him with Hogan, especially when they were in WCW,
it's going to be a hard enough time getting people to accept this. And now he's got this obnoxious heel manager acting like an annoying babyface.
Mm-hmm. Along those lines, Ted DiBiase is a face with the Steiner brothers.
No, that didn't work at all.
There's a lot of underrated managers too, though. Like when we were going back through Harvey Wippleman or whatever. What about Sonny Ono? I thought it was hilarious. The shtick that a lot of these guys come up with, whether it's the tennis racket or taking the picture on the ramp with the camera with these guys. But what about the specialty guys whose gimmick completely matches the guy they're managing? Like General Adnan was perfect for Slaughter. Paul Bear?
Well, right.
No one's mentioned Paul E. Dangerously yet.
He has had so many roles in wrestling. A lot of people
They think of the promoter
they think
before.
of ECW, but he was with the cell phone.
Mhm.
I mean, he was this yuppie guy coming to the Southern Territory, New York guy, the suit and tie, obnoxious and loud. Did Bobby Eaton, Arn Anderson, Rick Rude, and Steve Austin need a manager to talk to them? No, but
Eaton did.
But boy, oh boy, well, he's a good hit, not a good mouth. It totally puts it. I mean, that made something that was really cool, like with J.J. Dillon, even more cool.
Right.
Just deep breath.
Added.
All right, we're going to go to our first break
Kimchee.
as I compose myself, and we're going to talk about some of the worst managers when we get back. That was fucking great. He's a good hand, not a good mouth.
Acclaimed by reviewers and film festivals around the world, it is one of the great documentary films of our time. Now, the 10th anniversary collector's edition of Hitman Hart, Wrestling with Shadows, the story of the epic real-life battle between Bret Hart and Vince McMahon. And as a special offer never before released on DVD, The Life and Death of Owen Hart, exclusively available on this double DVD 10th anniversary collector's edition. The Life and Death of Owen Hart, the story of a real-life tragedy in a world where making money trumps everything.
Vince McMahon has always had this mentality about treating wrestlers like circus animals.
You never dreamed something like that could happen in wrestling.
Order the 10th anniversary collector's edition of Hitman Hart, Wrestling with Shadows, and The Life and Death of Owen Hart, and you will also receive 2 added features: a new interview with Bret Hart, looking back 10 years later, and an interview with the film's director, Paul J. Order this double DVD set now for only $24.95. Order now online or by phone at 866-396-4231. $24.95 plus shipping and handling. Order now.
Welcome back to the Wrestling Roundtable. Joining us on our panel is Brett Simonello, a fan of 23 years. So you've been watching a while, just WWF shit, but watching nonetheless back when they actually had managers. We were talking about a lot of the guys that came up with some sort of shtick, usually involving inanimate objects, that got them over and made them stand out. But because it is, at the end of the day, a gimmick, like wrestlers themselves, you can have bad gimmicks and guys who just plain out suck at what they do. So who do you think were some of the worst managers?
Colonel Parker with Harlem Heat. He wasn't
Harlem Heat! What the fuck? Yeah, that goes together.
That vibe.
Did you have him come out on chains or something?
Oh God.
I don't think it worked at all.
No, it didn't.
No, it did. Yeah, it was stupid. I think Sherri was enough.
Sherri worked better.
Sherri was very good with them. Very good with them. Sherri was always good. Yeah.
Sherri was great with Macho Man too, but
So
she,
Michaels
so
and
both
then
of
Diane.
them.
yeah, pretty much
Yeah.
anybody she was with. And that brings me to a question. We'll get back to worst in a moment, but that brings me to a question I wanted to pose because we mentioned how wrestling follows the trend of WWE. So WWE started bringing managers away from the spotlight, and they were practically non-existent in the Attitude Era. So they were bringing more of these TNA broads in. I mean, not TNA. I mean actual tits and ass. Why can't we get someone, not just a ditz like Maria or some shit, but someone who's actually really good at what they do, like Sherri or Sunny?
That's what they're not trained to do anymore. They're trained to get out there, just get over as soon as quickly as possible, otherwise they're out.
Well, it's
they
the
have a lot of
same-
time to develop any kind of image.
Is it because a point like Rodney's made on the show before that they concentrate too much on these models and non-wrestlers, non-fans?
Yeah, I mean now they wanna pick and choose their talent. They wanna pick someone and just push them until we're forced to cheer or boo for them.
So with the wrestlers, that applies to valets as well.
And they end up turning into wrestlers too.
Right. People who get into wrestling not to wrestle, like Tori Wilson and Stacy Keibler, end up in the ring stinking it up.
The only one I can think of that could make that transition to becoming the next Sherri would be Natalia. Because she has been around the business
pedigree.
her whole life. She knows that she's not just a model off the street. She's brains, she has the brains to do it. So she might be able to.
You got someone like Kelly, and for some reason, I don't know why, the fans like Kelly.
She's blonde and a
No, but there's a lot of women like that. Though, for some reason, just like with Miss Elizabeth, they
It's
love
whoever
her.
they happen to get
They
to
love-
post
but-
naked
but
that
you know
year.
what? No, but like I'm saying, there's usually some people that
Kelly.
do tend to rise above and be the new Sunny or whatever. So they go and they make her a wrestler and they put her in some weird storyline with Kane. It's like, why can't she just be like, Macho Man's valet and not get involved and then get involved at the right moment and make something really
None of the
big?
divas are paired
you
up
know?
like they used to be.
So the message would be, if they can do it, let them do it, but don't force feed it.
And
Because
less is
yes,
more.
They could end up with a Trish or a Sable. I mean, Sable sucked, but at least they got a mainstream.
And less is more.
So who are some of the other worst managers?
Probably one of the worst, but also one of my favorite is sweet Sapphire. Love her, but man, was she awful.
James Vandenberg.
The devil.
Force, you never believe any. He just like.
I think he's a mid-card sort of thing.
Yeah,
Like
but-
Jimmy Hart was a good
Like-
mid-card heel manager in WWF, but I don't see him as like a main event act manager.
Well, he was in Memphis. He was huge in Memphis. But James Vanderbeek, whatever his name is, if you're only good to be mid card, then you shouldn't even be a manager in wrestling.
You
Your
need
job
a
is to
mid-card.
talk.
What we
Manager's
don't
supposed to
need is
elevate.
Oscar. And Oscar was terrible.
This poor guy.
I'm gonna disagree. I liked Oscar.
All right, I'm gonna agree with
I
you.
enjoyed Oscar. He came out, got the crowd pumped up. He got people cheering.
If people think that Kitty watered down WWE is bad now, they should try the hardcore rap of Whoop There It Is by Oscar leading out Men on a Mission. But I also think that coach John Tolos was terrible.
Oh,
It's like there for like 2 months.
But it was
It was
bad.
bad.
They didn't need it.
Nobody knew who John Tolos was.
Exactly. So
That's
what's
good
the point? But I wouldn't blame him for sucking.
He was there. Who else could have blamed?
Brother Love is a great personality, a great character, a great interview. But when they put him with Undertaker,
Yeah, but that was like a month. You know.
well, maybe they realized how much it sucked and they
James
pulled the plug
Vanderbilt
on
Oh,
it.
you'll see him in TNA soon.
This guy with Kali, whatever. the fuck
Aaron
his name
Bischoff?
is, Aaron Bischoff. That's the real name. It just looks stupid. It looks like he has fake hair.
And they had
It's
Davari, who's like brilliant, like a great performer, and it's just like we gotta have one of the
And
writer
this whole
guys.
thing with the kiss cam was fucking
Yeah.
What an attitude
It's like-
era disaster.
I know
Yeah.
why he. Oklahoma. You
And
know?
Ferrara.
Stupid and not
Hated
funny.
that.
And
It only lasted a month more.
if anybody should be doing that, it lasted 2 months and he was a champion.
He was a champion.
Joel Gertner.
No.
What?
I-
Yeah, he was
like-
awesome.
No way.
It's like a 20-minute promo before every
But
double
it was
voice.
good.
Managers do.
It
That was
was
good.
They have 20-minute promos at the opening of every Raw you've been watching for 10
I
years.
don't know what you're talking about.
Nitro matches.
TNA has not had a good run with
Oh,
managers
God.
since they showed up. They had this horrible guy named Oliver Plumtree who was with the Giant Wrestling Penises back in 2002. That's your company,
Say it
TNA.
together, Scott D'Amore.
Yes, but you're supposed to hate him. He's a heel. No, I just want to throw my fucking TV through the window.
I don't
when
want
he's
to
on.
watch. I
I'm
don't
supposed
want
to hate my own life while I'm watching.
Thank God he's not there. Now, I never got Oliver Humperdink in WWF. I just never got it.
We were too little.
Right.
Well, the idea was to have a babyface version of all, because it's such an oversaturated amount of managers. Like, you know, they were having managers trade wrestlers in storylines, so many managers they had, so they're like, you know.
Is that a good thing to have, though? Should they have not just one or two good managers, like if they signed Larry Sweeney or something? If they had a whole roster, like a handful of guys, rather, forget fucking
Like
the
coaches,
brand split
maybe
that
they
no one
make
acknowledges
sense.
anymore.
Like coaches in the NFL. You would never have the War Games with J.J. Dillon and Paul Ellering if you didn't have J.J. Dillon and Paul Ellering. Well, you have Ric Flair in the Road Warriors, you need it. Yes, you do. It makes it 10
Even
times
like
cooler.
Survivor Series, instead of like 5 random guys that just happen to all be good guys at the same time,
Because
you
of the
have
context.
5 of Heenan's guys.
His
and
stable.
Heenan's
Yeah.
family,
It
have them
takes
stable.
The Barbarian and those guys, and it puts them with Rick Rude and the main event guys.
Against
and it makes-
Hogan, right?
Against Hogan.
Even if JBL wanted to do it, like the whole $1 million man, it's like, you know what, you're down on your luck, I'm gonna buy you, now you're with me. And I was, well, you know, buy 4
And
different
JBL
people.
be a mouthpiece.
Yeah.
But Gary Hart, if you listen to him when he was alive, of course, would say that he was the greatest manager of all time. Now, you, of all the people on the panel, would be more familiar with Gary Hart, not just in the NWA, but of course the Texas area as well. Gary Hart with Muda was great. Do you think that he would even make a top 10?
He was really good. It's like the managers being just a mouthpiece, but that's not like true.
I know it's not true.
Yeah, but and
Yeah,
it's also
it adds to like the whole dimension of like
That's
the character.
like,
Adds to the character.
Did Goldberg need someone to talk for him? I mean, like that would be ridiculous.
Well, people just get it in their mind because that's what they're told by WWE, that you need to be able to speak, and we know that's not true. That managers are mouthpieces, and we know that's not always true. There's a lot more that goes into what gets you over. It could be one thing, it could be a combination of things, and managers could be one of them. So it's almost like WWE knows this. They know they don't do it anymore, really, and they know that people miss it, so they put out like the best managers DVD. It's almost like, yeah, we know, we're still not
We
doing
know,
it.
but we're not
because
going
they
to do it.
don't
Same
have-
as tag wrestling.
Because they don't have abs and supercuts, haircuts, and prison tattoos, they don't get to be on TV.
Well, we need to all go to the tanning bed, so we're going to cut this off. We're going to be back next month for the Wrestling Roundtable. We're going to be talking about the funniest and least funniest moments in pro wrestling history, and also some of the best and worst celebrity appearances. So thank you for joining us on our first 2 shows back for Season 2. We're very happy that you take the time to view and subscribe and spread the word, because this is your show too. So for the panel, Brett Simonello, Sal Randazzo, Chris Harris, Zach Lippman, Lawrence Haber, Rodney LeConte, I'm your host, Eric Santamaria. Thank you for viewing, and tune in next time.